Hey guys, TRScientist here, and today I am back with day number 27 of r/Nuclear Revenge. And today I have three stories lined up, one of long length, one of medium length, and one of short length. I'm going to start with the middle story here. Lady wouldn't vacate private parking space. Good luck finding a licenseless car in another country police impound lot. I have lived in an apartment complex in Lisbon, Portugal. The where is important. For the last 4 years. I didn't know there was a Lisbon in Portugal. I thought Lisbon was like a place in England. It's like, right? If anyone's from here, you know parking is hell. Fortunately, my building has a private garage. However, as is often the case, some parking spaces are more difficult to park in than others. I have one of the easier ones. Last year, I was offered a job abroad and took it. I thought it'd be nice, parked my car at my parents' where they have plenty of space, and left a note in the building elevator that went along the lines of, "I'm the owner of 3B and will be away for at least 6 months. Feel free to use my parking spot." Ended up being away for longer, almost came back a year. Came back to see my parking spot occupied, which was okay since I offered for it to be used. Put another notice in the elevator, this time to say I was back and would use the parking spot again. Gave it 2 days and picked my car up from my parents. Went into my garage and my space was still being used. Had to park somewhere on the street, and decided to give it another day. The day after, it was occupied again by the same car. After I asked a couple neighbours and figured out it belonged to a lady living 2 stories above me. Went up to talk to her, and she immediately got defensive and said that her parking spot is very difficult for her to park in. And since I was away for longer than I had announced, I lost the space. Which is stupid logic, as the spots are bought with the apartment. It literally belongs to me. She also told me I couldn't use her parking space instead, as she was using it for storage. Wow, of course she is. Went to the building admin, who said he'd talk to her. He did, and came back shaking his head. Nothing. I sent a registered letter telling her to stop using my space, and giving her 48 hours to take her car elsewhere. The next day I saw the unopened letter in the garbage beside the mailboxes. I ended up scouting my garage, waiting for her to leave, and would immediately park my car, hoping she'd take the hint. She didn't, and we ended up doing this dance for a few weeks. Up until the day I came back to see my entire driver's side keyed. Oh no. That was the final straw. I talked to a friend who owns a towing company. We chose a Saturday morning. The last few weeks, she hadn't left home on Saturdays. I knew as I had been watching her car like a hawk. So I thought we'd have big chances of her not noticing anything until everything was done. And towed her car. The plan initially was to leave the car just down the road, but that felt too close and too easy. Then I thought about leaving it in the city about 15 minutes away, but it still didn't feel quite right. My friend jokingly said, "Let's leave it in Madrid." FYI, Madrid is in Spain, about 600 kilometers or 375 miles away. I knew he was joking, but Madrid did feel right. I asked if he had enough time. He had, so off we went. Once we got to Madrid, we went out for lunch, strolled around the city, and waited until it got dark and the streets empty. In the meantime, we had already decided on where to leave the car. A handicapped parking so close to a police station. And so we did. As a bonus, my friend also took both license plates off the car. Then we drove back home. It has been 2 weeks, and I haven't seen her car since. One of these days, I might leave a letter in her mailbox telling her to contact Madrid police, but in the meantime, I'll enjoy being able to use my parking whenever I want to. Do you have the time to take this car all the way to Madrid? Yeah, I don't have anything else to do. And then they just literally just do it. Just like 600-kilometer trip. Oh my. You had time for lunch and all that? Like, you waited until it got dark and then you left the car and went back home. Next story. Tried to flirt with my mum at my house? Okay, sure. So this happened when I was 3 or 5 years old, about 9 or 10 years ago. So this takes place in Texas, at our old house. Backstory. My dad is the definition of military sergeant. Deep, carrying voice, muscular, but not Dwayne Johnson muscular, more like his white little brother. Anyway, the whole reason we're in Texas, originally from South Carolina, was because my dad was stationed at Fort Hood. Now, my dad is a very honest man, and he works his brain. His brain functions kind of like 3 strikes, you're out. Anyway, my parents had parties semi-often, from what I remember. And so one night, everyone's having a good time drinking, playing cards. I was asleep and still a very heavy sleeper. And this guy, I don't remember the name, kept checking with my mum while she was in her room, sleeping. Now my dad caught him, told him to stop. First strike. A little bit later, he does it again. Once again, my dad caught him and told him to back off. Strike 2. This mother effer, no pun intended, was sitting next to her, stroking her hair. So I was told. My dad catches him. Imagine the face of if you were sneaking out to grab a midnight snack and got caught by your dad carrying a belt. That's what that guy's face looked like, according to my dad. He grabbed him by the collar of his shirt, threw him on the dining room floor where everyone was, and literally beat him until he was knocked the fork out. I have the images of this man's face burned into my memory. Imagine a grape was the size of a melon and had a face with a broken jaw. That's him. Yeah, there was blood everywhere, but my dad didn't just throw him on the floor and pummel him. He smashed him against a wall within short. TLDR, you be a perv, you get beat until you're being fed out of a straw. Yeah, like I said, we are in South Carolina right now. And scrolling through the comments about y'all have and short is making me die of laughter. Thanks so much for the support. I know it sounds corny, but honestly, thank you. And there was still a small stain from blood that we just couldn't get out. And we've lived about 2 hours from Austin because my mum was a nurse at a hospital there. Okay. Literally beaten within an inch of your life just because you decide, I'm gonna flirt with this man's wife. And not only once, not twice, but 3 times. And the husband is just like, okay, that's 3 times, and you stroking my wife's hair as well. You're getting an absolute beatdown from that. Entitled mother at a Ukrainian beach stumbles upon two creative sociopaths who deal out some sweet revenge. A few people told me to post this on a more nuclear level revenge, so hopefully it covers all the rules. So recently I came back home for a visit, and around the table the subject came to previous holidays, which made me remember this little story of horror, so I thought you guys might like it. Warning, I was, am, and will always be an asshole and fully understand that I and my aunt did a shorty, borderline sociopathic thing, but my shame had over the years degraded. Also want to give you a heads up that the dialogue in the story is from as best as I could remember, and also translated from Russian. This is also a cross story with r/entitled parents. I'm sorry if this isn't the right subreddit for this. Please tell me if I should post an r/. Okay, yeah. So this happened a very, very long time ago. Around the time when I was about 9 or 10. So old enough to develop a spiteful mindset. At the time, me and my family, which included me, my mother, M, my grandmother, GM, and my sister's mother, my aunt, MS. This was during the time when we lived in another country and usually went to the holidays to Ukraine around the Black Sea, which is where this story took place. Every morning around 10 a.m. we would head towards the beaches, as they were always full and impossibly hot by the time it was midday. So our plan was always go to the beach and leave by around 11 when it got so hot that you could cook in your own sweat. We would go around the small town surrounding the beach to play games, arcades, and other entertainment, then go back to our little special personal houses or huts for rest and lunch. Nevertheless, I digress. So, on this particular day, we made it to the beach a little earlier, which meant that we could pick out some of the best parts of the beach and set up our blankets before new amounts of glass and trash were made on the beach. For some background, while the Black Sea is lovely, the beaches around the area are only for the more experienced who need to know to avoid the trash areas. Often beaches were full of broken glass bottles, cigarettes, needles, and other dangerous things. Thus was I highly advised that you wear feet protection when travelling from point A to point B. So me and the gal crew, my grandfather rarely came to the holidays with us, as my grandparents own a massive house with farm animals and couldn't trust anyone to take care of them, so someone had to stay back. And my dad is a deadbeat arsehole, so it was always just us girls. Now about that spot. We found the perfect spot and laid out our things and towels and checked for any bottles or debris, and were rejoiced to find none. We watched the beach fill up with people, and eventually around 10ish we noticed that a large woman with 3 kids approached us. Now the girls in my family are big, but this was a hippo of unbelievable proportions. We were in a tight spot between the sea and the entrance, under a big umbrella that was there for public use. She towered over us. There were lots of people, but still a few spaces available to sit nearby, which was very surprising. This woman towered over us and loudly groaned and complained. Let's refer to her as EM and her kids as EK1, EK2, and EK3. All boys. EM, you are in our spot, she yelled loudly. All of us blinked unanimously in confusion. My mum even started laughing a little, asking, "Are you having a heat stroke? Or are you for real?" EM loudly gasped and started kicking our towels and stuff. You are in our spot. We have been sitting here for the last few days, and now your fat asses are taking my spot, and because of you, my kids are burning their feet waiting for you cows to move, she yelled. My sister's mother had burst into laughter, replying, well, whoever the cow is in this scenario is, it's definitely not us. Odd translation, I know, but it is direct. Okay, I'm not going to try to pronounce that. While this was happening, I was building a small sandpile. Her devil spawn suddenly started pushing me and taking us out of my sandcastle and bending it. To which I got up and pushed him away and grabbed my shovel and hit him with it, telling him to bugger off, hitting him repeatedly and hard. I was usually a well-behaved kid, but if I have ever seen someone try and break my stuff, I would cripple them, as we weren't the richest, and I was protective over my things. The mother gasped and started crying out for me to move, which everyone in the surrounding area glanced, but it's Ukraine, no one cares. I love my people, and besides, there was no one to call for help. Police or guards around the beach are not common or wanted. My mother stood up fully to her now and told her, take your fat, we have a better word. So, again, I'm not going to try to pronounce that, which means fat, hip ass in one word, and ugly ass somewhere else before the five of us collectively will cripple you. She strapped rise to slap my mother, to which I then responded by taking a plastic shovel to her son's eye with sand in it and started jabbing it, as his sibling tried to push me away, but I spit in one's face and kicked the other. All start crying, and a few people shout out for her to shut her brats up. The mother then stops midway and grabs her spawns and yells at us. The second you beaches move, I'm taking the spot. I know there was a few more profanities, but I don't remember every word fully or the conversation fully. Now, mind you, there was no one to call help for, as the lifeguards were not evenly spaced out and miles away. So we decided to have a miniature revenge. My mother tries to tell me off for assaulting the boys, but my grandmother defends me and said something along the lines of, don't be mad at her, she was defending you. To which we all then agreed and forget and have fun. Now me and my mother's sisters were a lot closer to being siblings and my mother. She was about 10 years older than me, so she was like 19 when I was 9. We went swimming in turns, never leaving the towel and stuff, and our stuff never unattended. After about 40 minutes, my mother and grandmother tells us to pack things up as we're going to get one last step as we had ours. So me and MS realized we had a window of opportunity. While taking their last step, me and MS see that the entire mother is eyeing a spot, and we had an idea. MS was just as petty-minded and asshole-minded. MS told me to have a quick look around for broken bottles in the area, and I knew exactly what she was playing. She told me not to touch them by hand and use my shovel and my little claw to pick up. I took my bucket and my spatula and started running around for about 15 minutes while she packed everything, and I started picking up glass shards and bottle shards with my spatula, and all the cigarette and all the disgusting stuff I could find, which was not hard. I piled them into the bucket. I then ran back to my aunt. She saw the bucket full. She told me to be careful and make sure that no one was watching or cared enough to. This wasn't the first Ponzi scheme, revenge plot, and act of disturbing punishment we have done, so I knew what to do. We knew that my mum and grandmother would still take a long time. Turning our backs to the MS started to take out the glass shards and bottles, and me and her started spraying them around that specific area, as this was not common for people to top bury their trash, so no one paid mind to it. We started slightly burying them for visibility. The shaft way up and engulfed that whole area as much as we could, while making it look like we were building a sandcastle. My aunt told me to come pick up grandmother and my mum as we saw them getting out of the sea and drying. She told me to take them around a slightly different route so they wouldn't step on our little booby trap. I watched her get up and the entitled mother almost pushed her out of the way and yelled at her to move, to which she just smiled and told her to have a lovely day as the five of us cross-met. We slowly started to head a little bit away, and my aunt stops midway where there are less people to put on a few things and stall for time so we could watch. I saw the entire mother hastily punting her towel over the sand without checking it, big mistake, and slops her fat ass down only to then yell and howl in pain as she had sat directly onto the glass shards that we hid, cutting up the towel and her leg and thigh entirely. One of the rats, who had also tried to break my things, stepped onto shards and cut his foot. By the looks and sounds of it, and started yelling and crying and breaking down, and the woman yelled in pain. A few people started being convinced by her, and others checked out what happened and tried to help, but the woman screamed profanities. She started rolling around, and all the cigarette butts and seaweed that we had also placed about started coming on her wound and skin, her towel and her things, and engulfed her in trash and all the things that people would be collecting in biohazard suits. My grandmother was horrified, thinking that we were also sitting on this but by my mother looked at the two of us, knowing we did this. She could not say a word and started shoving us away from the beach in a hurry to get out. Me and Emma started laughing as my grandmother said, "Oh, praise the Lord that we didn't get cut like that woman, and that it was the grace of God that saved us." Me and MS just continued laughing as my mother took us to the side and told us off. My mum threatened to punish me, usually by shaking me hard, yelling at me as she couldn't ground me on a holiday, but MS took the blame as she told me it was worth it. We sat down in the cafe and to get us some cold drinks and lunch, and only after about an hour and a half we saw paramedics started coming towards the beach, maybe around 1 p.m., 2 p.m. The medical care in Ukraine on holiday locations is piss poor, and the only way you get a doctor helping you is if you are dying, if that. It was also dead heat of the day to the medical paramedics would be too lazy to go onto the beach, and no one came to help until the sun came down. There was a dude who got tangled in a parachute, and help arrived only an hour and a half later. It was safe to assume that it was for the entire mother. That was a satisfying moment, as we had realized this woman was basically rolling in a cesspool of illnesses for at least half an hour or 1 or 2 hours before any help arrived, baking under 35 plus sun. We had most likely ruined this woman's holiday and have most likely put her out of commission for a long time, as those bows and that hazardous sand and cigarette pits would have definitely given her an infection, or at least seriously made it worse. Paramedics and doctors also need bribes there, so this help would have probably cost her 500 euros in bribes only, without the cost of any treatment. There are no cameras around, no people who cared, and no proof that we strikingly did it, and no way of ever finding us. Hopefully next time that cow learns some manners. Lesson of the story is that you don't pick fights with someone and underestimate their mindsets, because you may just stumble onto sociopaths who will get back at you for being such a delight. Give me a heads up if you want to read about some of the other Ponzi schemes and Council Monte Cristo revenge stories that me and my aunt have dished out over the years. When you grow up without the internet and only part-time cable TV, you find alternative entertainment procedures which mostly revolve around making a crappy person's day even crappier. That was so many mistakes. Like, yeah, it was translated from Russian, but whew, that was a lot of grammatical errors. Actually, no, not even grammatical errors. It was mostly spelling errors. That's why I was getting so confused. Actually, no, there was some grammatical errors. There was just a lot of errors that was confusing me. But, like, check the SAD before you sit down, no matter where you go. Like, if you're gonna go to a place that is known for just people leaving trash all over the place, make sure you fucking check. And yes, I know I did just swear. But with that, I'm going to end the episode here. Links will be in the description to my main channel and also the second channel, along with links in on the video to the playlist and the last episode. Go check them out. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you know when the next video comes out. A ding, a ding. I'm the Mad Scientist. Mad Scientist out.